In this video, we're going to talk about how to create a data and communication plan. Basically, the premise of this floor plan is to show us the location of light switches, outlets, any HDMI plugins or cables or VGAs, Ethernet, thermostat, and things from that nature. All these small electrical devices around our project. So to start off, what we want to look at is the two PDFs that are in the modules. One is called Electrical Legend 1, Electrical Legend 2. These are the symbols that we're going to create for our floor plan so we can use as a legend. So we'll start by looking at the ones that are highlighted in red. This is your typical duplex symbol. That's the same as this one. It's basically just two lines with a circle around it, and that is your typical outlet that has two plugins where you charge your iPhone or similar. The difference between this one and this one is that this has a GFI underneath it, which stands for ground fault interrupter. We use these type of outlets whenever, or duplexes, whenever we have any water supply nearby. So for instance, the ones in your kitchen or the bathrooms or next to our hot tub in our design would use GFI versus everywhere else we're going to use just the regular. If you have a range outlet, it's also the same symbol with a small R next to it, and that's for the range in the kitchen. When it comes to the quadruplex outlets, those are basically also the same symbol with an additional of two extra lines in here, and this would represent that there's 4 outlets, not just 2. And those are your typical, most common seen ones around a household. Some additional ones you may see is a floor-mounted outlet. And there is a whole bunch of other stuff in here that we're not going to cover. They're not typical in a residential environment. For the most part, we'll be using these 4, maybe this one too. And last but not least would be the wall-mounted data outlet, and that is where it's going to locate your Ethernet plugin for your data on the router. Under Electrical Legend 2, there's a few other symbols related to switches. Okay, so the ones that we're really going to be focusing on is your single pole switch. That is a switch that goes up and down to turn on or off a light. If it has the number 3 underneath it, that means it is a 3-way switch wall mounted. That means that I can turn on and off this light fixture from 2 separate locations. The circle with the T is the thermostat, so we'll probably place one of those around our studio. All right, so first step is to reference these 2 legends, and let's create our legends. So under Electrical Legend 1, I need to start by creating the symbol. We want it to be a decent size, so we'll do the first one somewhere close to our building so we can see how big it will be. We'll start off with a circle, and about a 1-inch diameter, or 1-inch radius, I should say, should be okay. So we'll go into type in D for diameter and then 2 inches. And this will be a 2-inch diameter. Then we'll create this line back here. We want to make sure that that line is right off the center. So let's hover over that outside of the circle, activate the line command until we see this node. Then I can click in here, and this is the center. Okay. Then I will click on this line, copy one over, run this much, and then I can mirror this one over here. MI, enter, select the object, enter, then select the axis or draw the axis. If you want to erase the source, I'll say no, and I can delete this middle part here. And now I have 2 lines offsetted from the center about 5/16 or 4/16, a 1/4 inch apart or so. Okay. If you want to make this a little bit bigger, you can, but for the most part, something like this will be sufficient. Okay. let's go back and take a look of our reference here. These two lines should extend all the way to the end, and then we have another line in the back here. So I will use the extend, EX, enter, enter, escape, and I'm going to create a line, mirror this line along the center axis. And here goes my first fixture. Okay, this is our duplex outlet. Let's create the layer for this. Well, this is electrical, so we'll start off with E, and then this will be devices or fixture, either one. And I'm going to select these items here and put them under the new layer, E fixture. And I can create the first block from this one. So we'll copy this over because I need several of them for the different types of outlets that I have. The first one will be just a duplex. I need to add a letter in here for R for range. So M text. Draw the box. Let's double click in here and make this a little bit bigger, perhaps an inch is a good size. Now I can take this whole thing and block it. Call this one duplex range. I'll copy another one in here or create another one in here, M text, MT, enter, draw the box. I'll choose the 1 inch height and type in GFI. That's this guy right here. And then we'll turn this into a block. And last but not least would be this right here. So I'm going to take these two lines, copy them over, and then I'm going to rotate them 90 degrees. And what I want to do is I want to select the lines from the center in here. Okay, I want the point right in between them so I can line it up to the point right on the center in here. So if you remember from previous session, you basically want to hold shift and right click and choose the midpoint between 2 points. That's this and this. Okay, you want the line in here. So type in L, enter to activate the line. Then before clicking, you want to hold shift and right click, midpoint between 2 points. Click this point, and the starting point will automatically be placed on the center of these two lines. And you can draw that segment right in between. Then I can move these 3 lines. The center from here is basically the center of the circle. So I'm going to hover over the circle. So I see this plus sign in the center of the circle. Move up in here, click to release. And now I can delete this line and extend my 2 lines to the top. Hold shift key and trim this. And this is my quad. Block, quad. So here are all my symbols under, put them on the side in here. And I just want to make sure, verify that they're on the correct layer. Okay, so these symbols are currently under a floor pattern. Let's make sure they're under electrical fixture. And let's double click inside in here, each one of these, just to make sure that the lines within it are also under the correct layers. All this should be under E fixture. Close and save. You can double click in order for it to activate the block right away. This is good. So I can just discard the changes here. Double click, click OK. Select the element, and then go to Home and make sure that the layer is under eFixture. Close Block Editor, save, and this will be the last one to do that. This is again important when it comes to line weights. We want to make sure that the CTB prints everything appropriately as we need it to. So this takes care of these 4 symbols. All right. We have one more that's a floor mounted. So let's draw that one. That's basically a circle with a square and the 2 lines across. And the wall mounted data outlet is a 45-degree triangle that is filled in with solid fill. Okay. So I'm going to make sure that my circle is the same size. I will copy this symbol. I'll explode this block by selecting it and typing an X for explode, enter. And basically I can just trim this and build a square around this. So rectangle. From the center, I can draw a box that's slightly bigger. There you go. And I'm going to copy this over. All right. And now I need to get rid of all the middle lines. So I'll just draw another rectangle, one big one, and then delete all the little ones that meet in the center. And this should look like this guy right here. Let's block this one. Make sure that everything is under eFixture, and then block. To make things easier, I'll activate the current layer to be eFixture. Now I need to draw that triangle, so I'm going to draw a line. Need something about 2 inches. So I'll draw a line vertical 2 inches. And I want to go down till it snaps onto the 45 degrees line. There you go. Escape and draw another line from here up to 45 degrees. And use the trim. And I'm going to hatch this a solid fill. That's H, enter. Look for the solid hatch. First one on the top left. Click, escape twice, and then I'll select this and block it and call this one data. Okay. Now to complete our legend, so this is what we're going to use to place around our drawing. Okay. Now we also want to create a legend that explains what each one of these are, the same way you are looking at it in this PDF in here. So we can space these out a little bit so we have enough space for us to write a description of what we're looking at. Trying to line it up to make it look nice. Okay, and let's bring in a text. That's M text. And write a description of what each one of these are. Duplex convenience outlets. Remember to keep everything all caps. Second one is range outlet. Let's make this a little bit bigger first. To click on the text and click on this arrow and hold to drag out if you're looking to get this to stretch it out. All right, so I'm going to copy this one over 2 more times. This one is the duplex ground fault interrupter. Next, we are ready to go on to our next PDF. So we're done with this one. And we're going to create the 2 switches and the thermostat. So I'm going to use the same text, mtext. Type in S. I might want to go a little bit bigger than an inch, so perhaps I'll try the 2 inches. Might be a little bit, yeah, that's about a good size. And this will be for the switch. And I'm going to copy this one more time. And then another time here. And make this number 3. And switch the size to an inch. Let's turn these into blocks so they're not just text. So select it, block. Same thing. This one will be switch 3-way. And we'll also need a thermostat. So I'm going to copy one of these. I can explode it. Remove the lines from there. And I'm looking for a letter T in there, inside that circle. mtext. mtext. Click to release the rectangle. Click to finish it. Type in T. And the text size, we'll try 1 inch and we'll see how big that is. That looks about right. Let's try to center it. And then select to block. And then we'll write the description here. So we'll copy this text over and write the description of what these symbols mean. And there you have it. You have your legend for an electrical drawing or a communications and data drawing. We want to put this on a sheet, so I'm going to draw a rectangle around here to make it look nice. I don't necessarily need to write here data and communication legend because I'm placing it on a data and communication legend. But the practice or the standard is to basically write in text in here what we're looking at. Okay, so you can take one of these texts and copy them over in here. Let's double click and make it bigger and bolder, as well as change the size. Let's try 2 inches. And we'll call this one data and communication legend. We can try to center this in here and center it vertically. And we're ready to put this on our sheet. Let's navigate to 13 data communication plan. We have here a viewport already. So I'll move this viewport to be in the center of my project. I will double click inside and find that legend in here. I'll turn off my grid. And you want to put this at a decent size. So let's take a look at what scale makes sense for us. We try the same scale that we're using for our floor plan, that's 3/8. That might be a bit too small. So let's double the scale of that. Let's try 3/4. We can even go bigger, all the way up to, let's try the 3" equals a foot. That's too big. Yeah, so a good size will probably right in between that. Let's try the 1.5. That seems about big enough. And we can move this around. And remember, we don't want the border of this viewport to print, so I'm going to take this and put it under the def points layer, because that is the non-print layer. Okay, we want another viewport for the actual floor plan, so I can select this viewport and copy it. I can make this viewport bigger. Double click inside and just navigate over to bring that floor plan. And we want to put the floor plan under 3/8 of an inch. That's our standard scale we're using. Make sure all my geometry is shown. And we can start setting this up to be our electrical and communication plan. So we'll double click. We don't want to see any dimension. So lay freeze. That's LAYFRZ. And you can click on the dimensions, turn them off. We're not interested in the floor finish. We can turn that off. And we're going to keep the furniture and everything else in here. Okay. Hit escape. And if you want to double click inside here to lock the viewport so it doesn't change scale, and then go back to our model so we can start placing our electric and communication. So we'll start off with some duplex outlets. I'll select this one and copy it over. If I want to make our symbols bigger, now would be the time to make it. I can rotate this guy 90 degrees. So I'm going to have one facing this way. And I'm going to mirror this. And I'm going to take another copy and rotate that 90 degrees as well. Now I have all the directions. Okay. We'll take this and copy this over on whichever location of the wall you want. Okay. So maybe we'll place one on this wall. You may want one outlet in the storage in case you want to put something and plug it in here. And you want to keep one available out here. And you can, basically, there's an electrical code that tells you there you cannot go, I believe, 12 feet, linear feet along a wall without having an outlet. Basically, the way as architects or interior designers, we lay out the electrical devices where we want them to be or where we prefer them to be. And the electrical engineer will verify the code to ensure that you have enough in there. Okay, so basically you put them where you prefer them or you think will be most useful. Okay. Once I get into the wet areas, I want to make sure that I use the GFI outlet. I'll take this one. For outdoor outlets, you want to make sure they're GFI because it does rain outside and it's a wet condition. place one on this side and copy. Okay, so I want to plug in something in these cabinets. Maybe I'll put one in here. You definitely want something over the sink. Now be careful when you mirror when there's text, because the text is always going to get mirrored too. So that's when you want to make sure that you are exploding this and have two separate blocks, or you can have a block just for GFI and a block for the only the symbol. Okay, so it's easier if I just explode this and select these objects and mirror them. And I'll make a new block. And we'll move this against the sink in here. Okay, we'll take this one and go up to the kitchen in here. Okay, so now I need to rotate 90 degrees. It's okay to have it rotated, the text 90 degrees, as long as the text around your entire project is rotated in one direction. So I'm tilting my head left to read this, the way I'm turning my head left to read this. Okay, you don't want to be tilting your heads in multiple directions. We'll put one by the sink in here. Another one on the opposite side. You never have enough outlets in the sink for sure, or in the kitchen, I should say. And we also need one for the fridge. Usually this one is not GFI, but sometimes install a GFI in here. And then we need one for the range. So we'll go down here to grab the range. If I mirror this, it's going to mirror the letter. When it's only one letter, it's not bad. We can live with that. When it does overlap like this, it doesn't look too good. And we'll take this after we explode it to block it again. The last GFI we probably will need is somewhere in by the tub. I will put one outlet in here. When it comes to the bedroom, we'll choose the floor mounted. And we can add a few of these. Usually they're about a foot or so from the bed. Okay. We'll also put one in here and one here. Last but not least is two more on this side. So we're going to mirror these two outlets. And I'll pick an axis that's roughly around the middle of the house. And for no, because I don't want to delete the original, And here they are. And remember, if once you explode the block, the text will revert back to its original side, and then you can select these lines along with the one against the wall to turn this back into a block. Okay, so this one is basically done as far as placing our outlets. We can use the one for the data next. So I need to decide where I possibly could have my modem installed. So most likely I can probably add it in here. I can put it in a closet. I can probably tuck it right under the couch in here. So I'll take this one and rotate it 90 degrees. And make sure the tip is what touches the wall. And I could potentially put it in here, but at this point you can always run this wire through. So I think these two are the two potential locations around the house or around the studio where I could run a data outlet. So I think I am done with that. Thermostat. Let's copy this over. And thermostat are usually somewhere close to a common place or a common area. So somewhere along this wall would make sense so that I can reach it from the bed as well as close to my entrance. Sometimes you would commonly see this along a wall very close to the exterior, so we probably see it more commonly in here. Okay. We could have two if we want. Switches are the next thing, so I'll take a copy of these two, and let's take a look on where I would need them. So as soon as I enter the space, I want to turn on the lights for my kitchen. So I need to ask myself, do I need to be able to turn off the lights for somewhere else? Can I turn on the lights from here? But if I am sitting in my living room, can I just reach over here and turn it off, or reach over here and turn it off? So I don't have to walk all the way to the front. If the answer is yes, then I need to place in here a three-way switch. So I'll take this guy, move it, and put a three-way switch in here. What am I turning on? Can I possibly be able to turn on these lights in here? I should. So if I have guests over, with one flick, I can turn on all the lights in my open area. So that means I will need two three-way switches in here. Okay, so that takes care of that. When it comes to the bathroom, I only need one-way switch on and off. As soon as I open the door, it's going to be on my left. Usually the switches go on the side where the opposite of the door panel is, so that you swing the door open and you reach with your arm to turn on the lights. I may have some nice lights underneath or above my tub. So I will place in another light switch here to turn on and off these lights. I can also add another three-way switch in here if I want to turn off the lights for the kitchen and the living room from this side. So these could be the main controls in here. These lights will turn on everything in here, and they can be turned off toggled from this switch or this switch. Let's add another switch for the closet. You probably want this to be outside somewhere. And perhaps if there are some lights just specifically for the living room, on and off from the living room, such as spotlights or whatnot, we can put another switch on here. Lastly, some switches for the exterior. Go back to this one again. I'm looking for a single switch. And this will be for turn on and off the exterior. And this one will be to turn on and off the exterior. And this is a general idea of how we place switches around our building. Now, let's place a few light fixtures. Usually light fixtures are displayed in the reflected ceiling plan, but we can annotate them in here to give a general idea of what our lighting is like in comparison with our furniture. So we'll create a new layer for light fixtures. We're going to assign color 52. And also for the electrical devices, I want to assign a different color. I'll choose 130. And I'm going to activate my light fixtures. Remember that the naming convention should be followed. So in this case, we're going to type in E, light fixtures. And we're going to draw a few symbols in here that would represent a light fixture. So for instance, I want some spotlights, probably a 6-inch diameter. Those are nice recessed lights that I can put right above my head. So when I'm reading, I can basically get some good lighting. And then I can balance them out on this side in here. We'll copy these over. Okay. That's enough lighting around my my bedroom. So in my living room, I can choose to perhaps have two nice rectilinear or circular light fixtures. So I'll draw a rectangle here. And perhaps I'll stagger them a little bit and rotate them a few degrees. Around the kitchen, I'll use the same type of lights that I used here. And this one becomes a little bit important to understand where your geometry is so that you can do nice lighting around your house or your building. It makes no sense to have a light so close to the fridge and a light not centered to the table. I might want to do something like that, okay? And then line up these with it. Okay, on the outside too, if you want to use some of the same type of lights. And I'll take these lights and do another one on this side here. Lastly but not least is the bathroom. We have two lights here, and we'll have another rectilinear lights right by the sink area. And tub as well. So basically, when you're doing a lighting layout, you just want to take into consideration what is the function of the space below and align the light fixtures to optimize the amount of light being distributed based on the function. So if it's a table where I'm sitting, I should have the light right on the center of the table. If I'm sitting here and reading, I don't want the light to be directly underneath me, but I want it a little bit in front of me or behind me. Okay? Once we have done that, now we can go ahead and go to our data and communication plan and take a look at what we have here. Okay? Now, the main thing in here is that our lights are the strongest and the darkest, just as dark as walls. Everything else is really not as important. Okay, so let's take a look at the line weight for our electrical devices. That was color 50, 2 for light fixtures, and 70 for the electrical fixtures. No, electrical fixtures is 130, and electrical light fixtures are 52. And we want those nice and dark. So we're going to go to 130 and 52 and make them very dark. We'll close this. Control P to get to the CTV table. Click on this button here. And look for color 70. And hold the Control key. And find color 130. And we're going to go to the line weight, and let's give it up a nice dark color. We'll go up to 0.45, and let's see what that looks like. Okay, let's turn off or lay freeze the text for the furniture. We don't need that, as well as this here. And I think for the line weights for the light fixture, they are hidden, they're above. So what we're going to do is make them a little thinner and make them dashed. And then overall, we want to make it just slightly thinner because it's getting too bulky in here. Okay, so under color 70, we're going to assign this to be perhaps 0.35. And then under 132, or no, 130 it was, we're going to assign in here for this to be 0.35 as well. Let's take a look at it now. That's better. And we're going to go into this viewport, lay freeze. And turn off the hot tub layer, the text, and then also the furniture text, because that's not important for this particular plan. I changed earlier color 70. What I meant to do is be careful here because you have the plumbing fixtures and equipment were 70. The layers I'm working with is really 52 and 130, not 70. Okay. So be conscious of which layers you're selecting to edit the line weights, because you could make a very honest mistake like what I just did here. So I'm going to go back again and go to layer 50, color 52, that's the light fixture, make it thin and dashed, and then I'll go to the 130 for the electrical devices and see what color that is. Okay, 130 and 52. So Control P one more time. I'm looking for color 52. And in here, the line weight should be, we'll try this 0.35. And that is the light fixture. So I'm going to choose a line type of very small dashes, if I can find one. So I'm going to look for, try short dashes. Let's see what that gives me. And we're going to go to color 130. Let's check this out first. Okay. The dash is a little bit too big, so we want to make sure that we have smaller dashes than this. This is not acceptable. Okay, so I'm going to go in and make it slightly thinner and add more dashes in here. So to load another type of line, you want to escape, go back to your model space in here. And what we're going to do is go under the properties in here. And then when we go to this line type in here, these are the line types that are currently in the model. I can load other. And then I can load additional ones. And in here, I'll find something that it has small dashes. So -2 looks small enough for me. Click OK and OK. And instead of using the print settings to create my dash lines, I'm actually going to select these objects in here and assign that -2 for them. Okay. Another location is under the layer. If I look at the light fixture, the line type for this layer can also be assigned in here, -2. And that will take all the objects on the entire layer and turn them dashed. And if I want the dashes to be bigger, I can use the LT scale like we've done in the past. Just be careful, because what you see in model space will change depending on what you see in paper space. When I go in paper space, notice how the dashes are not as small, because as you change the scale, this changes. That's when we want to make sure that we select these objects in here, and we're changing the LT scale to make it smaller. Okay, so I can select an object, right click, and choose select similar to help me select all these circular lights. And I'll go back to the non-circular lights that I have. Those are the rectangle ones. And switch those LT scale, line type scale. We'll try 0.1. And if you zoom in, it looks about that. That's what 0.1 looks like. And I think this is pretty acceptable. Now, when we go to Control P and go back in here under color 52, I can choose for the line type to go back to use line type, because I don't want to override it. And I'll make this 0.25, and let's take a look at it now. Okay, dashes are still too close together. You see how they're very, very tight? So let's go back and try to adjust that one more time. It's a matter of just going back and forth until you nail it right on the spot. So we'll take this and let's try line weight 0.05. That's too close. Let's go up. Let's do 0.5 or 0.4. Okay. Just want to get about 6 or 8 dashes in here. So let's try 0.3 this time. Okay, that looks about right. So one more time, select the object, right click and select similar. Let's go back in here and selecting the remaining of the light fixtures and set the LT scale to be 3. Beautiful. Another thing we have here, if you notice that our outlets are very small and they're very dark. So if we want, we could potentially go in there and make them bigger or more legible, because right now they're tough to read. And we could also potentially give a dimension of the location where we would want them to be if the location is essential, okay? Once you're done here, we're basically done with this communications plan and we're ready to publish it. Let's just go back and fix our line weights for the equipment because I made it darker and it should be a lot lighter than that. I mistakenly changed my line weight for color number 70 earlier. It should be lighter than the casework, so even lighter than this. Casework should be darker than the plumbing fixture. All right, let's take a look then. There you go, that's a little bit better. Now we're ready to publish this. We're not going to dimension our lighting switches locations or our GFI outlet locations or other. We're just going to keep it as is for this particular assignment. Now, one thing I definitely want you to do is fix the switches around your floor plan because it starts to look very confusing. Just having an S there like that looks very odd. So one way of doing this is to actually rotate the switch 90 degrees. And then you can take the switch and put a line right through it and make that line touch the wall. So basically, this is what it would look like. I will rotate this 90 degrees. And I will copy it because I have two three-way switches in here. I'll take this one as well and rotate it 90 degrees. Okay. And then what I will do is I will run a line right through it. So I will go to the appropriate layer, e-fixture. I'm going to activate each one of these blocks if I want and basically draw a line right through it like that. And this is very typical that you see a lot on electrical or data and communication plans. This looks a lot more stronger and it talks together rather than just throwing a letter out there like that. So for this one, you can just draw a line. It's easier if you don't have to edit the blocks. You can just go in and every time where you have a switch, you want to basically, if it's a vertical wall, you want to rotate 90 degrees and we're going to draw a line right through it like that. The last piece of the puzzle is the heights of these fixtures. So by default, generally, we create a small sketch that will give us the typical mounting heights and unless otherwise noted. The way this works is that we create another legend like this at full scale. So we'll draw a line that is basically the ground floor. And I will draw in another rectangle in here. The dimension would be perhaps 8 feet high is the height. And then I'll make a wall that is generally about 6 feet wide. Okay. I think I did vice versa, 6 feet. So let's bring this additional 2 feet. There you go. It's an 8 by 8. So this is a typical wall. We may have a door in here. So if you want to draw a door just for clarity, I can use a polyline and draw a line from here going up A door is going to be about 6'8". It's about 80 inches or so. So 80. And then 3 feet wide. And then down again. Okay. And what I want to do in here is I want to do typical heights. So we'll draw in a rectangle that would respond to an outlet. Okay. And then we'll draw another one that would respond to a switch. And then we'll draw a dimension line. So go back to D, I, M for dimension. And I will click the bottom. And the center of the outlet, which is the center of this line right here. And this is what we call a central dimension. You always dimension from the center of the object to a ground floor. Okay. So we go from the center line and we want to go straight down and get this height. And by typically this particular height right here is about 1'4". That's 16 inches. Okay, so I need to go up 5 inches and 7/16 to get to 1'6" for me, 1'4". So the best way to do this, I'll just copy this line from this line, copy it over 1'4". That is 16 inches, and basically take this geometry here and move it from the center of this rectangle to this line, and you're going to have a 1'4". Okay. Your typical switch height is about 48 inches. So I'm going to copy this ground plane 48 inches. And we'll do the same thing. We'll take this and we'll move it over, down, and draw a dimension line from this object, from the center to the ground plane. That's DIM. There you go. Okay, and that is your typical. Now let's add in some line weights and correct layers in here. This one could be the dimension layers. It has its own viewport, so it doesn't really matter which one I use. I'm going to use the A anode dim in here. I'll leave these in electrical fixtures. I want the ground plane to be nice and thick, so I'll use the same one I'm using for wall. I use the A wall. These two lines are kind of irrelevant to me. I'll hit X to explode and get rid of this and get rid of this. So this could be potentially just my sketch right here. And I need to add in some text annotations. So I'm going to copy some of these that I wrote earlier in here, or use mtext again. I'll use, in this particular case, 2 inches, something big enough that I can see. And we're going to make this one read switch and we want another one to be outlet. Now, in a more of a standard, we need to point to this object. We can't just write an outlet in here and leave it like that. Okay? This is vague. We have to actually draw an arrow that comes out and points to the object directly. So we can use a leader of just the arrow, or we can just get rid of this and use the leader command here in AutoCAD under Home. So what we'll do is we go to this leader in here and click on leader, and we'll point to the object and then come out on an angle, and then it asks me to type what I want to write in here. I'll switch the text to 2 inches, type in outlet, and click off of it, and there you go. And we would like to make this just slightly bigger by moving this little triangle in here out more. So it points to the object. Okay. And then we'll copy this one over to this one. Choose this as my reference point. And we'll call this one switch. Okay. If we want to make the arrowheads bigger, well, we could potentially change the style, or we can do an instance by properties in here. So you can right click and choose properties if you don't have this window open. And here is the size of the arrowhead. Under leaders, arrowhead, we can switch this perhaps to 1 inch to make it a little bit bigger, or 2 inches probably would look a little bit better. And we go back to our data and communication, and we're going to need to basically make another viewport. So I'll move this one to the left, copy it over, and bring in that sketch out here. And I'll switch the scale to probably 3/4 should be sufficient enough. And there you go. And we're ready to print this to a PDF. And when we look at it in our drawing, it should be something like that. Okay, be careful with the dimensions in here. So my dimensions, first of all, 1, they're too big, and 2, they're cropped. So I need to make sure I show these. And here I should be able to see my light fixtures hidden, which is mean dashed. And I should see all my outlets and my switches in my project. Okay, so please always look over before you send it over, so you can notice these things in advance prior to me redlining it for you. Okay, and if I want to switch these guys and make them a little bit smaller, we can look at the properties of each one of these and see if we can change the size and make it slightly smaller. We don't want to adjust the actual settings of the dimension style because we like how they print at the scale in which we're printing the floor plans. So I want to be able to switch just these two in this particular viewport only. So when we select these two and scroll down into the properties, under text, here's the text height. Let's try 3 inches. That looks a lot better. And now we can print this as another sample. That looks much better. All right, so good luck, and look forward to seeing your assignment.